Every year, thousands of people vanish without a trace. Most are found, some are explained, but a few defy all logic. They were seen one moment, gone the next. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, just silence. And questions that have haunted families, investigators, and entire nations for decades. These aren't urban legends. These aren't ghost stories. They're real, and they're terrifying. Tonight, we explore 3 of the most chilling, unsolved disappearances in modern history, each more mysterious than the last. Disappearances that might never be explained, unless you believe in something darker. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson. It was just after midnight on May 14, 2008, when Brandon Swanson, a 19-year-old college student from Marshall, Minnesota, drove his Chevy Lumina into a ditch. He had spent the evening celebrating the end of spring semester with classmates from Minnesota West Community and Technical College. Friends later described him as sober, cheerful, and in control. Around 11:30 p.m., Brandon left the party in Canby, intending to drive home to Marshall, a 30-minute drive, but he never made it. At 12:30 a.m., he called his parents from his cell phone. His voice was calm. He told them he had accidentally driven his car off the road near the town of Lind, just a few miles from home. He wasn't hurt. The car wasn't badly damaged. He just needed a ride. His parents, Annette and Brian Swanson, got into their pickup truck and headed out. Brandon told them he could see lights in the distance. He thought it was Lind and that he would walk along the gravel road toward town while they drove to meet him. They stayed on the phone the entire time, but something was off. As they drove around Lind, Brandon insisted they should be seeing each other. He described landmarks, buildings, roads, turns that simply didn't match what his parents were seeing. They began to realize he wasn't where he thought he was. Still, the phone call continued for nearly 47 minutes as Brandon calmly described his walk. He mentioned walking past fences, gravel paths, and hearing running water nearby. Then suddenly, without warning, he said, "Oh shit," and the line went dead. His parents tried calling back, over and over, but Brandon never picked up again. They searched until dawn, yelling his name through the darkness, praying he was just lost or that his phone had died. When the sun came up and there was still no sign of him, they contacted the Lyon County Sheriff's Department. At first, authorities assumed he had just walked off and would return on his own. But that changed when they found his car, not near Lind, as he believed, but over 25 miles away, near the tiny town of Taunton. He had been completely disoriented, walking in the wrong direction all along. Search teams were dispatched. Dogs, drones, helicopters, and hundreds of volunteers combed through fields, ditches, and brush. Cadaver dogs traced Brandon's scent along gravel roads, through grassy terrain, across fences, and finally to the edge of the Yellow Medicine River, a shallow body of water with no strong current. But there was no body, no footprints on the other side, no clothing, nothing. Divers searched the river extensively. No signs of Brandon. No torn clothing, no scratches on trees, no drag marks. His phone remained missing, and no activity was ever detected on it again. Incredibly, there was also no evidence of animal attack, no blood, no disturbance in the area. It was as if he had vanished mid-step. Over the years, various theories have emerged. Some believe Brandon may have fallen into the river and drowned, though the river is not deep and had been thoroughly searched. Others suspect he may have been injured and died of exposure, though no remains have ever surfaced. A more chilling theory suggests that something or someone may have been waiting out there that night, hidden in the fields or shadows, and that Brandon's final words were a reaction to a threat that struck in silence. Then there are stranger ideas. Unexplained environmental hazards like hidden sinkholes or crevices, or even the possibility of an abduction by someone familiar with the terrain. Others believe his disorientation was more than just geographic. It was almost as if something was manipulating his sense of place, leading him away from safety and into oblivion. In the 16 years since that night, Brandon Swanson has never been found. The most unsettling part? His parents were only minutes away from him, talking to him in real time as he slipped into the dark and was lost forever. One moment, he was describing the road ahead. The next, just silence. Today, Brandon's case remains open and active. In his honor, Minnesota passed Brandon's Law in 2009, which requires authorities to begin investigations immediately when an adult goes missing under suspicious circumstances. But for Annette and Brian Swanson, it's not about legislation. It's about a call that ended too soon and a road that led nowhere. It's about a voice in the dark calm, lost, and suddenly afraid. And the question that still haunts everyone who hears his story: what did Brandon see in those final seconds? And where did he go? The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Keepers. Off the rugged western coast of Scotland lies a cluster of remote islands known as the Flannan Isles, windswept, desolate, and uninhabited, save for the lighthouse that stood sentinel over the treacherous North Atlantic. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse had been manned by 3 men: James Duckett, the principal keeper; Thomas Marshall, his second assistant; and Donald MacArthur, the occasional keeper filling in for a man on sick leave. Isolated on the island of Island Moor, the 3-man crew maintained the massive lantern and kept logbooks, noting the rhythms of wind, waves, and routine. But in December of 1900, something went terribly wrong. On December 26th, the relief vessel Hesperus approached the island to deliver a 4th keeper and bring the others home for the holidays. But even from a distance, the crew aboard the ship knew something was off. The great light meant to shine day and night as a beacon against deadly reefs was dark. When the ship docked, no one came out to greet them. No flag waved from the flagpole, no movement, no sound. Only the endless crashing of waves and the wind tearing through the cliffs. A small party climbed the jagged steps to the lighthouse. The entrance door was locked from the inside. They forced it open. What they found was eerie beyond explanation. Inside the lighthouse, everything was in perfect order. The beds were made. The clocks had stopped. The oil lamps had been cleaned and refilled. A half-eaten meal sat on the table, untouched, its tea now cold. A single chair had been toppled over, as if someone had left in haste. The keeper's heavy coat's crucial protection against the fierce Atlantic cold still hung neatly on their hooks. No man would dare venture outside without them, especially not in December. But the lighthouse was empty. All 3 men had vanished. A search of the island revealed nothing. The cliffs showed no sign of a fall. There were no footprints, no blood, no gear left scattered. The only clue came from the logbook entries. Entries that would only deepen the mystery. One entry described a terrible storm, battering the island, high winds, crashing waves, fear. Another entry noted that Thomas Marshall had been unusually emotional, even crying. The final log, dated December 15th, read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." But meteorological records showed no storm had been recorded in the area on those dates. Nearby ships reported clear weather. The official investigation offered a theory. A sudden rogue wave, perhaps 100 feet high, had struck the western landing. The men, possibly trying to secure equipment or assist one another, were swept away to their deaths. It's plausible. But still, why were the coats left behind? Why would all 3 go out at once, against regulation, especially when at least 1 man was required to stay in the lighthouse at all times? Whispers of mutiny, madness, or murder-suicide began to spread. Some speculated that one keeper killed the others in a fit of cabin-fevered rage, then took his own life. But there were no signs of violence, no blood, no weapons. Others said it was the island itself. For centuries, The Flannan Isles had been feared by local fishermen, considered cursed or even haunted. Pagan ruins and strange stone altars still littered the rocky slopes, remnants of ancient rituals long abandoned. Superstitions told of little people, of spirits that called men into the sea. One theory claimed the men were taken not by nature, but by something unnatural. And then there were the stranger reports, sailors claiming they saw the light still shining days after the logbook said all was calm and dark. Who was tending the flame? None of the bodies were ever found. No one has ever conclusively explained why 3 men vanished from a locked lighthouse with everything in order, and no one watching. Since then, the Flannan Isles have been a place of silence. No full-time keepers remain. The lighthouse has been automated since the 1970s. The wind still howls across the stone. The waves still crash against the cliffs, but no one answers the door. The only thing that remains is the final log, and a line that chills anyone who reads it. The storm has passed. All is calm. God is over all. The disappearance of Lars Mittank. It was supposed to be a simple summer vacation. Lars Joachim Mittank, a 28-year-old man from Itzehoe, Germany, traveled to Varna, Bulgaria in late June 2014 with a group of close friends. They stayed in the resort town of Golden Sands, a lively coastal area along the Black Sea, known for its cheap drinks, loud clubs, and crowded beaches. Lars was described by his family as friendly, mild-mannered, and easygoing. He had a girlfriend back home, a steady job as a power plant technician, and no history of mental illness. There was nothing strange about him until there was. One night during the trip, Lars got into a minor altercation at a local bar. According to his friends, the fight started over football. Lars supported the German team Werder Bremen, and he argued with fans of rival club Bayern Munich. At some point, he was allegedly punched in the ear. The injury didn't seem serious at the time, but the next day, Lars complained of persistent pain and partial hearing loss. A visit to a local doctor confirmed he had suffered a ruptured eardrum. The doctor prescribed an antibiotic called ceftriaxone and advised Lars not to fly due to the change in pressure that could worsen his condition. Lars's friends offered to stay behind with him, but he insisted they return to Germany as planned. He would take another flight home after a few days of rest. They left on July 7th, and that's when everything began to spiral. Alone now in a foreign country, Lars began to behave strangely. He checked into a cheap hotel near the airport, the Hotel Color, in a quiet part of Varna. That night, he called his mother back in Germany. He whispered into the phone that he was being followed. He said he was afraid that people were trying to kill or drug him, and begged her to cancel his credit cards immediately. Confused and worried, she pressed him for details, but he gave none. Only fear. Surveillance footage from the hotel later showed Lars pacing the hallways, looking over his shoulder, peering out windows, as if expecting someone to come for him. At one point, he reportedly hid behind a wall, then ran out into the street, disappearing for hours before returning. By the next morning, July 8th, he took a taxi to Varna Airport. Security footage shows him entering the terminal calmly, wearing a yellow shirt, jeans, and carrying a small bag. He stopped at the airport medical center, asking for another opinion about his ear. The on-site doctor found nothing unusual, but then, mid-conversation, Lars stood up abruptly, eyes wide, and bolted out of the room. The surveillance footage that followed would become infamous. Lars is seen sprinting out of the airport without warning, leaving his luggage behind, including his wallet, passport, and medication. He darts past security, across the parking lot, and then toward a chain-link fence at the edge of the property. In seconds, he climbs over and disappears into the dense trees beyond. And just like that, he was gone. Despite years of international investigation, multiple missing persons reports, and countless tips, no confirmed trace of Lars Mittank has ever been found. Not a single sighting, no calls, no digital trail, no remains. He vanished within minutes of being recorded on camera. But the fear in his body language, in his wide eyes, his nervous movements, and his final dash into the unknown suggested something had terrified him beyond reason. The question is what? There are two main theories. The first is that Lars suffered a sudden psychotic episode, triggered either by a latent mental illness or by a reaction to the antibiotics he was prescribed. Some rare side effects of ceftriaxone include hallucinations, paranoia, and anxiety, especially when taken in high doses or without food. Alone, injured, and under stress, it's possible Lars had a complete psychological break from reality. But that theory leaves many unanswered questions. Why did he leave everything behind? Why hasn't a single person seen him since? Why did he seem so lucid in some moments, like calling his mother and arranging a flight, and then completely unhinged in others? The second theory is darker. Some believe Lars may have been targeted by someone local, perhaps involved in criminal activity. The fight at the bar might have marked him. Perhaps the people he claimed were following him really were. His whispered pleas to his mother, his insistence that someone was trying to kill him. It's possible that wasn't paranoia. But warning, could he have been abducted after fleeing the airport? Did he see something he wasn't supposed to see in Varna? Was he trafficked, or murdered, or hiding? The deeper mystery is how someone could vanish in broad daylight, on camera, in a modern city, and leave no trace behind. Online, the disappearance has become a viral obsession. Reddit threads, YouTube channels, and conspiracy forums continue to analyze the footage frame by frame, speculate on timelines, and dissect medical reports. But no answers ever come. Lars Mittank remains one of the most famous unsolved missing persons cases in Europe. Today, his image is still shared by police in Germany. His mother continues to search for him, refusing to believe he is dead. He was afraid of something, she says. He didn't just run away. He was running from someone. But who that someone is, or what terrified Lars enough to abandon everything and vanish into the woods, may never be known. The forest he ran into was thick, but not endless. And yet, somehow, he was never seen again. 3 people, 3 different countries, 3 stories that end the same way, with silence. No goodbyes, no witnesses, no closure. Whether it was a wrong turn, a moment of madness, or something we're not meant to understand, they vanished. And the world kept turning. Somewhere out there, the truth still lingers, buried under trees, behind locked doors, or maybe just outside the edge of what we dare to believe. Thanks for watching. If these stories left you wondering what's really out there, you're not alone. Subscribe for more real-life mysteries, disappearances, and disturbing true stories that refuse to be forgotten.